What's up, y'all? It's Antonio, and I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about how to handle pressure in sports today. Pressure has been defined as any factor or combination of factors that increases the importance of performing well on a particular occasion, by Baumeister, 1984. And that goes right into my experiences that I've had with pressure in sports and how I overcame that and how I feel like it can help anybody overcome it too. My experiences with pressure in sports came a lot through middle school to high school, right when, people start becoming more judgmental and you start having these goals that you want to chase. I started to feel it a lot when I was playing basketball, all through being young, and I started having these expectations for myself to achieve. Right before I started running track is when I really started figuring things out my senior year. And when I did get into track, after all my experiences with basketball and having so much pressure on me that caused performance anxiety and nerves and all that, I was not gonna let that happen no more, and I just developed a different mindset for it, and I did a couple simple things that helped me do that. So the pressure from the peers comes all throughout, bullying, all those type of things that I feel you experience from your peers in high school, middle school, start to create pressure for yourself. You start to compare yourself to other people. The coaches often can put a lot on you, and you feel like if you mess up that they're gonna take you right out, or they're gonna take you out of an event or substitute you out the game. It can be a lot of pressure on some people. Parents can obviously put these unrealistic expectations on their kids and try to live through them and make them do something a type of way. Next, I'd say fans. In high school, you have student sections, you have all these validation from others in your class. It can be embarrassing if you mess up in front of them, or feel that they're gonna keep talking about it in school, or it's always gonna come up and people are gonna roast you, whatever you wanna say, man. Next, I'd say social media. You're seeing all these players and athletes do certain things. You want to do the same thing. A lot of things can end up on social media through highlight tape. There's a lot of different platforms to showcase athletes now, and it kind of can get in a lot of people's heads. So I wanted to talk about how I noticed I was having this situation, and then how I proceeded to fix it and change my mindset with sports. First, I'd say I really realized it in late middle school and high school. I would be really upset with myself, and I always felt like I was disappointing myself or that I wasn't good enough, and it created a lot of short temper moments that I had, and times where I would get mad at myself and really not let myself reach my potential, because I felt like I was always putting so much pressure on myself to do good. I was never allowed to mess up, which was really unrealistic. And I started to want to do something about that. My senior year in high school was when I started to figure it out, run around track. So when I transitioned to track, I promised myself I'm gonna come into this with a different mindset, and it also helped because I don't think I expected to be where I was with track, so it never was something that I put a lot of pressure on. And then I started to grow. I never really put too much pressure on myself when it came to that, and then it let me grow in that sport, and it let me grow in a healthy way. I had a couple of things that I did to help me grow as an athlete, help me handle pressure in sports and kind of flip it around. It starts with meditation. So it's something that's undercredited, underappreciated, and misunderstood in sports. I think it's really good for athletes to meditate, and anybody to meditate, not just an athlete. Any person who's doing anything should meditate, and it can really go hand in hand with fitness too, because I noticed that I wasn't sitting there crisscross with my hands up humming. I was kind of centering myself, closing my eyes, putting something relaxing on, just clearing my mind for any amount of time. An hour is cool, 30 minutes are cool, whatever you want to dedicate to it, and not thinking about anything. And as you start off, you notice it's really hard to stay thinking about nothing, because your mind is always racing and wanting to think about what you're going to do, what you're about to eat, who you're about to hang out with later, and you can often drift off. And then when that happens, you center yourself again, you start thinking about nothing, and the more you do it, you start to notice the easier it is to clear your mind. Okay, so next I want to talk about doing it for yourself. It's something that I feel is really important to really grow the right way in sports, and definitely help you out once it starts to get to a point where you're feeling a lot of people having their opinion. It's just not worrying about what the coach in the bleachers is thinking, or think about all the fans, what they're gonna say, what your dad's gonna say to you after the game, what your mom's gonna say to you after the game. It's just having fun with the sport and realizing why you started doing it. You should be enjoying what you're doing out there, And you know, not everybody should be dictating the way you feel. You're supposed to be enjoying what you do. So once you start doing it for yourself, you're gonna notice it starts feeling a lot more able to accept failure and win. Makes you have a level head, and that's what I noticed when I started doing it for myself. I was more level-headed about it, and I was able to grow from situations, positive or negative. Next is having no expectations, which I think is the biggest factor into dealing with pressure in sports. It sounds a little strange at first. You're like, oh, if I have no expectations for myself, it's like I don't care, I won't do good. But it's actually the complete opposite. It allows you to do what you worked on. It allows you to not limit yourself. When I used to have expectations for myself, I would always like pigeonhole myself into doing what I was thinking and doing what I was constantly erasing on my mind, and not really doing what I prepared to do. Say a good example of that is I had a meet my freshman year in college. I forget exactly where we had the meet at, but it was one of our later meets in the year towards conferences, and I needed to do well in this meet. I needed to run a certain time to lead for on our team for the 60 meter and be able to represent our team in conferences. And I knew this for weeks ahead. I had known this, so of course it's on my mind while I practice, but I let myself think during practice, improve during practice, and then I did all this work, I prepared hard, and I got to the meet, completely cleared my mind, and it was time to go. I had no expectations going into that race. I move on and I do not think during a race, and it can often take them off of the team objective or just performing well in general. Let that show, and don't worry about your stats until after the event. People do want to know their stats. They want to know they did good, they want to see improvements, and they want to be able to send times off to coaches and get interest and, you know, get recruited and pick up offers. Story I told about when I had that race, just my my regular routine before I get on the line. And after the race, I'm standing there waiting on the big screen to see my time. Now I'm thinking about my stats. Let me see if I got it. It's that simple, and I feel like if you inhibit those 4 factors right there, it'll help you eliminate pressure and eventually not feel it as much. You're gonna have pressure at times, you're a human being, but it's gonna help limit it as much as possible and be able to help you perform. I appreciate you guys listening to me. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe to me. There's a lot more content coming out like this, the sit down videos. There's a whole lot of different stuff coming to this channel, fitness related, so subscribe, tune in, and make sure you don't miss nothing.